From Phoenix, Arizona, it's the Neglected News Report. I'm Scott Mitchell. I'm here with my brother, Kevin.
Bienvenidos.
He's always got to come up with some kind of smart aleck way of starting the show.
I could say Zdravstvuyte.
I don't think anyone would understand that.
Russian.
You know who would understand that, though? Is the Russians that are, like, probably tapping us. They'd understand that.
They probably speak better English than a lot of people in various parts of Phoenix.
Yeah, it's like, you ever see that show, The Americans, on FX?
I know about it. I've never seen it.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what goes on. And I don't think that's too far from the truth. It's set in the early 80s, right after Reagan became president. Anyway, here we are in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. It's been a weird week weather-wise.
It's actually been rather pleasant. This is typically a really hot month of the year, and we've been getting a lot of rain, and temperatures have been staying, under 100 degrees, which is very unusual for this time of year, and the nighttime temperatures have even dipped below 80, which is really unusual. However, we've had a few knuckleheads do some stupid things in their vehicles as usual when roads wash out. So anyway,
yeah, it's been like yesterday. I woke up yesterday morning. It was 70 degrees and like 75% humidity, and the dew point was like 67, and what was it? Something else was 72. Anyway,
I can tell you my grass is really green.
Yeah, mine is too. So green that I got a notice from the HOA to mow it.
It's a lot of green there.
Yeah, tell me about it. I don't even have a big yard. I only got maybe, 200 square feet?
Not too much. Well, hey, let's, the big news this week was, the big, John the Jihadist beheading,
Foley.
Foley.
I can't remember his first name now. Was it, I can't
Mr.
believe
Foley.
it. Yeah. I can't remember the guy's name now. Hold on, I'll get it for you in a second here. I'm looking it up right now on Drudge. Yeah, well, if my internet would load it. Oh, well. Oh, there it is. Wrong tab. I think we should tell the guy's name because I think it's important that we remember him. I don't remember. I know his last name's Foley.
But that wasn't even the first time he was kidnapped. These guys really tempt fate. A lot of these journalists. He was interviewed a few years ago on Fox News by Bill O'Reilly after he had been released from his first kidnapping. So, eventually, obviously I'm not trying to exonerate the terrorists. Don't get me wrong there. But, you go in that area of the world, anything can happen if you're an American.
I mean, what is... I'm going to say any administration thinking when they let someone go. Do you think they're just going to all of a sudden go back to their homeland and like buy a piece of land and start a farm and live in peace and harmony with nature? No.
How many of these ISIS characters do you think had spent some time at Hotel Guantanamo?
Probably a lot of them. And I know people have the tendency of not taking them seriously and laughing at them because when they spew their hatred and everything, it's just funny the way they word it. Quite often, you know what I mean? But take them seriously, folks. They've followed through on everything they said they're going to do.
And John the Jihadist speaks English with an impeccable British accent, which kind of leads me into a nice little segue to something we spoke about last week, which was how Muhammad was the number one male baby name now in the UK.
James Foley,
okay. And my point was that Britain was beginning to lose its culture. They were beginning to, they embraced multiculturalism so much and political correctness so much that they allowed a very virulent form of Islam to take root in their country. And we're seeing that now with Jihad John and several other British citizens. That these are natural-born English citizens that became radicalized somehow because they were allowed to become radicalized.
Here's the thing you got to realize about when people go from one country to another. They're going to another country simply because their country they're coming from usually sucks. Why does it suck? Quite often because of their culture.
Exactly.
Because, and a lot of people say their government is derived from their culture, for crying out loud.
But we're guilty of the same thing. Coming from the Southwest, you go past a certain area in Phoenix, and I'm sorry, English isn't spoken too much.
Nope. Not down by the ballpark.
All the signs are in Spanish. In order to, I have a friend who owns a landscaping business, and of course, most of his employees are Mexican. And who has to learn a new language? He does. He has to learn Spanish because they don't know English. So he's got to just to communicate with them. He has to learn Spanish. That's not how it's supposed to work.
It's
not assimilation.
Unless anyone call us racists. Do you know if you were to go to Mexico, they would require you to learn Spanish? Why don't we require them to learn English?
Well, because I think there's a certain population out there of people, not population,
that have an agenda.
And that agenda is basically to destroy American sovereignty, to remove borders.
They don't believe in borders, period, for any country. They believe in one world where everyone lives in harmony and is warm and fuzzy. They're citizens of the world.
Well, we tried that once. It was called the Tower of Babel.
Yes. Speaking about that, let's go off, diverge just a tiny bit on that. In the Tower of Babel, everyone was, it was funny because when they built it out of bricks. They made bricks to build it. And this was Rabbi on Glenn Beck.
Yeah.
Rabbi I forgot his name now. Anyway, Lappin. Daniel Lappin.
Daniel Lappin, yeah.
Anyway, he said, if you read the Tower of Babel story, they made the Tower of Babel out of bricks. Now, what's the difference between a brick and a stone? Instead of stones are probably stronger. Bricks are all the same.
Same dimensions.
They are same dimensions, same size, same weight, whereas stones are all different. Now, that he uses as an analogy for what they're trying to do with this world. They're trying to make the world, homogenize the world. They're trying to get people used to the idea of mass transit so they can herd them all into cities and into one area.
And when you have a brick out of if you have one brick that's sort of misshapen, what ends up happening to that brick? It's thrown out.
Yeah. This crap about culturalism is just to get, it's just so they can get everyone uniform and homogenized.
And the ones that
when you think about it.
And the ones that won't be invited to the party, so to speak.
Exactly. I mean, they're using the multiculturalism is a disguise for what the real agenda is. And that's to get everyone accepted and all one race, all one people, all one language. It may not be English, but it's going to be all one language.
What was that? I always forget the name of the show on Fox, the money show has the 6 boxes with the talking heads on each one.
Who hosts it?
Oh, I forget, but it doesn't.
Bulls and Bears.
It's probably Bulls and Bears. But anyway,
Brenda Butner.
Yes,
that's Bulls and Bears.
Yes, they were talking about the borders, and your typical pencil-necked leftist geek gets up there and literally says this. When something is so absurd, it leaves you speechless. It leaves you speechless because you don't even know what to say. He said that he didn't understand what the big furor was over our open borders. Didn't get it.
It was probably Jonas Max Ferris. And if you listen, if you know Fox, I find it so hard to believe that he's married to Dagan McDowell. I really do. Because she's just the opposite.
What are these fools going to say one day? Okay, I'll guarantee you this. We've got enemies within our border right now that want to do us harm. There's no doubt about that. You would have to be a fool to believe otherwise.
And we got people like him who are just useful idiots.
Are they useful idiots, or
I think a lot of them are.
Are they just? Or are they part of the?
It only takes a few that are part of the whole thing, but a lot of useful idiots to get it done. Anything done.
Yeah, and you know what happens to useful idiots?
They're the first ones killed.
Lenin told us that. Lenin came up with the term useful idiots, by the way. Either him or Trotsky, but I believe it was
They eat
Lenin.
their own. I mean, all you have to do is go back to the French Revolution to see that.
Once your usefulness is used up, they really despise you. Actually, the useful idiots are despised by the real puppet masters out there, because they realize that
they don't respect them. They'll use them as a means to their end, but they don't respect them.
Exactly. It happens all the time
because they can be bought, whether it be by money or ideology or whatever.
Yeah. Case in point, in 1968, the Soviet Union came in and invaded Czechoslovakia because there was uprising, there was civil unrest, and of course, the civil unrest was orchestrated by communists. Wow. So there were people rioting, burning things, and so forth. So we have a crisis. So who comes into the rescue?
It's a Hegelian dialectic again.
It's a Hegelian dialectic. Create the chaos, come in with the answer, and the first people after the all the riots are quelled, first people to go in front of the firing squad are the useful idiots, the people that were used as puppets to create the chaos and so forth. They're just used and discarded. Mm-hmm. It's used over and over and over again with communists.
Folks, there's nothing new under the sun. This has been going on for thousands of years, this kind of stuff. It has.
Now, I think, going back to ISIS, I think ISIS is a monster of our own creation. Mm-hmm. We wanted to basically get Assad into a fight, and Assad did his best, to not do that. So all of a sudden we have this rebel force that pops up. That's ISIS, by the way. That we call, it wasn't called ISIS back then, but that's who it was. They were funded by the West. They were propped up by the West, and do you remember, Scott, the video of the rebel fighter executing one of Assad's guys in the street and then cutting his heart out and eating it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's ISIS right there.
And think about it this way. Since the beginning of the year, they started out as maybe 5,000 people. They've grown to like 10 or 15,000 now.
And all these young Brits are marching off to war. And what? Can't they see the dark? This has nothing to do with Islam. This is darkness. This is the gates of hell opening up. This isn't Islam. And these people take they get a lot of satisfaction out of beheading children, women, just killing. They just, there's no other word for it. And the people that are being attracted to this, why?
And before you say, well, it's only 10 or 15,000 people, what's the big deal? Well, it's 10 or 15,000 now. Just 7-8 months ago, it was only 5,000. What is it going to be 7 or 8 months from now? The thing is, think about it. How many people did it take to execute 9/11?
18, 19.
19. That's it.
And all these unemployment, I forget what the unemployment rate is.
And they got buku bucks, too.
Unemployment in England is even higher than ours, even though we don't really show you what our real numbers are, but I won't go there. But, so you got a bunch of disenfranchised young Islamic boys from, whose families came from the Middle East or North Africa or whatever, who are sitting around doing nothing, and they see romance and all this stuff. So they're marching off to the Middle East, and they're going to become them some jihadists, because John to the Jihad is their new hero. Come on.
It's the same. It's been romanticized, much as in the same way that some of these kids that wear the Che Guevara t-shirts have romanticized him and communism and socialism.
The Crusades weren't much different 1,000 years ago. I mean, everybody in Europe marched to the Middle East and, wanting, treasure and the romance of war and all that stuff.
This is entirely different, though.
Well, it's the same it's the same mental state that people find themselves in.
It just seems different.
Do you want to talk about the connection between Benghazi and
yeah,
ISIS?
I think that bears some discussion.
So, I know, call me a conspiratorialist, but Benghazi was about gun running. Yeah, I'm cutting to the quick.
And as you recall, within a month of it happening, there was some person high in the military who came out with that theory. I mean, it was well thought out theory.
Well, and it's no wonder there was nobody left. Nobody left alive after it all went down. So how convenient is that? But those, I'll guarantee you dollars to donuts that at least some of the weapons and some of the hardware that ISIS is using came from a sweet deal that Ambassador Chris Stevens helped orchestrate to get guns to Syria. Those guns went to Syria, and now they're in Iraq. They're in Iraq and Syria, and those are. So this is this beast we created. When I say we, I mean the West, not just the United States, because it runs deeper than that.
More specifically, as they grab more territory in the Middle East, where do you think they're getting the guns and the tanks and everything? They're taking the stuff we left behind because, President Obama decided that the Iraqi people should defend themselves and were capable of doing it. Not only that, but they're also stealing money out of the banks. That's why they are the best, the most well-funded terrorist group in history right now. In only a few short months, they become this.
And how can we expect the Iraqi people to defend themselves when they've been nothing but prisoners their whole lives anyway? They don't know what freedom means. They're used to. Did you see them all laying down and just waiting to be have their throats cut the other day?
You've got to understand the value of something before you're going to defend it.
I mean, they laid down and waited for their throats to be slit. Mm-hmm. Come on, okay. Granted, if I try to defend myself, I'm going to die anyway. But I'm going to die at least a little bit on my own terms.
Yeah, I mean, so the mistake we make in concerning everything in the Middle East is we look at it through our own mindset. We can't do that. What does Obama go around saying? He says, well, they love their kids over there as much as we love our kids here. Oh yeah, they love them enough to send them out with bombs strapped across their waist to blow themselves up. That's how much they love their kids.
Which
you got you got little kids that are saying that's what they want to do when they grow up. You've got little kids who are learning how to use automatic rifles. You got little kids who, when their elders commit an act of terrorism on the West, are parading in the streets throwing candy. Come on.
Now,
they don't think like we do, folks.
Did you also hear that Hamas executed 18 people in the street this week as well? And if you look at the pictures of them as compared to ISIS, there is no difference. They're all dressed in black. They all have masks on. They're all cowards. And they all, in my opinion, this has nothing to do with Islam. This is the gates of hell opening up, folks. You got to see it for what it is. This is pure evil. There's nothing religious about it. There's nothing philosophical. There's nothing but pure evil.
You want to know how evil they are? They're so evil that Al Qaeda is afraid of them.
I mean, what's the purpose? What kind of person cuts off a child's head? What kind of person cuts somebody's heart out and eats it? No, these aren't people. These are, like I said, this is from the depths of hell, and the gates are opening up, and it ain't going to get any better. It could come to the United States. I wouldn't
it's here in some form.
I wouldn't
already.
suggest ISIS to do that, because I think they have a gun behind every blade of grass.
I think that's one of the reasons why they haven't really come out with an all-out assault.
But then it makes you wonder why our politicians here in the United States would like nothing better than to take our Second Amendment rights away from us, disarm us. Then we could be just like the Iraqis and get our throats slit and our heads cut off, right?
But you know what? Here's the thing. I believe they've got operatives here already. You'd be naive to think otherwise. Because look, there have already been reports since this whole thing on the southern border has started of people that are non-Central American, non-Mexican coming across the border. They found people coming in from the Middle East, people from Asia, people from Africa. They've been coming over here. They're just waiting for the trigger to start wreaking their mayhem.
And there's no disparagement meant by this statement I'm going to make. Can you always tell the difference between someone from the Middle East and a Hispanic?
No. Until they talk.
Yeah, I mean,
possibly.
I mean, if I saw, a Middle Eastern person dressed like somebody, like a Mexican that's coming across our border, I probably couldn't tell the difference between the two. They have their skin's darker, hair is darker, and you probably can't tell.
I work with a guy from India, and sometimes it's kind of hard to tell people from India from anyone from the Middle East.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can flip this on, in the opposite direction and take. Can you tell the difference just by looking at between a Russian and someone from
Czechoslovakia,
Rhode Island,
or Poland, or any? Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
I mean, and so we've got these people, I'm sure, that are blending in with the normal Central Americans and Mexicans and getting over it. So, but again, we can't talk honestly. Scott and I do, but you can't talk honestly about any of these problems because of political correctness. It's the ultimate cudgel that is used against people who want to speak honestly because you're labeled racist, sexist, homophobe, whatever you're talking about. You're not allowed to really say what's on your mind.
And while we're talking about this, I'm going to sit here, we're all into definitions, because if you control the definitions of the terms of the argument, you control the argument. In other words, if you control the words that are used in the argument, in a discussion. The definition of racist: a belief or doctrine that inherent differences among the various human races determine cultural or individual achievement, usually involving the idea that one's own race is superior and has the right to rule others. That is the main thing right there. The fact that you think your race is superior to others. I mean, it's the same thing with feminism. Feminism, they think the feminine race or gender is superior to the male gender. Ageism. You think that your age group is better than another one. The younger ones think they're better than the older ones.
Well, anymore, racism just basically means disagreeing with Obama. That's racism.
Pretty much.
And another thing, how come I can't call someone from Mexico a Mexican? And why must I call a black American an African American?
Why can't you call them a Mexican? They call us Anglos in a derogatory manner.
But all this is done for is mind control. You control the speech, you control the thought process. I mean, Orwell talked about it in 1984.
Newspeak.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, George Carlin did a skit on that a long time ago about how words keep changing to describe something. The term we use to describe a particular thing changes so much that eventually it loses all its meaning. And he was talking about shell shock, which is now evolved into PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. You have to think about that a little bit before you understand what it means, but when someone said shell shock back in World War I, they understood what it meant.
Well, even ISIS name's changing, is morphing before our eyes. What are they called? The Islamic State now? They
were originally ISIS or ISIL, now it's just Islamic State.
And you know who Isis was, don't you?
Yeah, the Egyptian goddess of fertility.
She was actually a harlot.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like we ISIS is kind of like the Puff Daddy of the Middle East.
Oh, I got a little sidebar here. I was at Verizon.
Think about that, folks.
I was at Verizon the other day getting a new phone, and the saleswoman was really pushing this new product really hard. It's a product out from American Express, and it goes right on your smartphone. And more merchants are beginning to have the hardware that goes with it. So basically what you do is you walk up to McDonald's and you buy a Big Mac, and all you do is put your phone next to this one scanner, and then you push a button, and all of a sudden, it automatically debits out of your account from your phone. You know what the product is called? ISIS. I'm like, come on, couldn't you guys have thought of a better name than ISIS? Well, American Express?
They had to do that because Siri was already taken.
ISIS, really? People, names mean things sometimes.
Well, what has Rush Limbaugh said for years? Words mean things.
Yeah,
they do.
But the powers. Oh gosh, no, I don't want to go there because it's too conspiratorial.
I'll go there.
you call them who you want, the Illuminati, whatever, the people that actually
the powers that be,
the puppet master that controls Obama, because Obama doesn't really make any of his own decisions. They don't come up with these names by accident. A lot of these power brokers, let's put it that way, are actually, they're not Christian, I can tell you that. They really relate more to the ancient religions, which were pagan, and ISIS is one of them. You'll see a lot of the names that okay, here's one for you. Lucent Technology. That's a big New World Order Illuminati company. What does Lucent mean? Light. Lucifer, light, Lucent Technologies. Yeah. I mean, and their symbol is a red circle. You know what the red circle? It's an occult symbol. It's basically satanic, and it's the serpent. It's a snake biting its own tail, and that's Lucent's symbol.
Yeah, I've got here as an adjective. It's shining, translucent, clear.
And that's who Lucifer. He was a guy. He was an angel of light. Actually, he's not, but that's what he tells everybody. But anyway, these symbols are everywhere. They mean things. And there was something I read the other day. It basically stated, I can't remember what it was, but it said words, basically symbolism is, you'll find more meaning in symbolism than you will in words. And that they're used constantly, and that we just don't pay attention to them.
Well, because no one reads anymore.
So yeah, you got companies like Lucent Technologies. There's others. I don't have it in front of me right now. I can't think of off the top of my head. But there's reasons why things are named the way they are. So what's next on our plate? I think we've beaten ISIS up enough.
We've taken up almost half the show. Just a little bit less.
I want to. When I pull it up, I'll let Scott talk while I'm doing it. I found this really fascinating. There was an article that I read just the other day. I posted it on my Facebook page now.
Yeah, and I heard Glenn Beck was talking about this the other day too.
Yeah, how the country's opinion about same-sex marriage has just flipped. It's gone in 20 years.
Very quickly. Too.
And I want to read you these statistics if I can find them here. Oh, yeah, let me look it up here. Okay. Currently, same-sex marriage support now is at a high at 55% of the population. So let me go back in time here. In 1996, that's 18 years ago, they broke it down into age groups. In 1996, the age group 18 to 29-year-old people, 41% of those 18 to 29 believed that same-sex marriage should be legal, as opposed to 78% right now in 2014.
It was what was it 20 years ago?
41%.
It's gone to 78.
So that's a 37% turnaround in age groups 18 to 29 years old. And by the way, just last year, 2013, that same group had a 70% approval rate of same-sex marriage, and now it's 78. So just in 1 year, it's gone up 8%. Okay, so now we go on to the next demographic. Is 30 to 49 years old. In 1996, 30% believed that same-sex marriage should be made legal. Now 54% believe it should be legal. So that was a 24-point swing. The age group 50 to 64, that's my brother and myself. In 1996, 15% thought that same-sex marriage should be legal. Now it's 48%. That's almost half. That's a 33% swing. And the last group is 65 plus. In 1996, 14% thought same-sex marriage should be legal, and now it's 42%, which is a 28% swing. Those are drastic numbers.
Even for that big a time period.
And the reason I'm bringing this up, I'll tell you my feelings. I'm not for same-sex marriage. I'm for various reasons, but that's not why I pulled this up. What I find interesting is the why. If you ever saw the movie 1984, and I know I dredged this up quite a bit, there's a scene where Winston Smith is laying in bed with his sleeping woman that later would betray him. Julia was her name, and she's asleep, and he's stroking her hair, and he's talking about life in this dystopia that was created. And he said to her, Julia, sweetheart, he said, it's not the what that bothers me. I get the what. It's the why. That I'll never understand. And that's why I always love the why. Why have these numbers changed? Why? I mean, we're talking in a generation. Get this. Let's go back in time. And I've had this conversation. I probably talked about it before. I have this friend that I've known since 1969, third grade. I've known her since third grade. And she's a big advocate of same-sex marriage. So one day I said to her, now, I won't say her name, but what if I were to go back in time to when we were third graders playing on the playground and walk up to you and say, in 45 years, you'll believe that it's perfectly fine for two men to marry or two women to marry. What would you have said to me? Well, she said, well, I think I would have said, well, that's absurd. That's wrong. That's, that can't be so. And I said, of course. But what's changed? What's changed in you? And of course, her answer is she became more enlightened. But it's deeper than that. It really is mind control, because every day we're faced, whether it's TV commercials, sitcom shows, movies, you name it. The hero is always the gay guy. Mm-hmm. The dunce, the biggest of all the dunces, is the straight white dude. Mm-hmm. So all I can say is that we've succumbed to all of that, and we shouldn't have had we been awake. Had we been thinking normal human beings that use their brains instead of plug into the TV and zone out, we would have been able to know exactly what was going on. I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with watching your favorite shows and everything. I do it all the time. I'm a TV junkie. I have been all my life. But when that's all that your free time is devoted to, I mean, mix it up a little bit, folks. Get on the internet, do some research, do some reading. Oh my God, I said the R word. Yeah, read. Try it sometime. It'll help. It'll be a good thing.
Well, what do they consider one of the biggest moments in TV history? The kiss?
The kiss on... There's two things that I think have really screwed up relationships between the sexes in this country. Number one, the kiss on the Ellen DeGeneres show. The first lesbian or same-sex kiss. And the other thing was the Anita Hill trial about 24 years ago. Yeah. Those two things, I think, have really screwed things up in the society. And
then all of a sudden, after the kiss, everybody starts coming out like, we really needed to know Rosie O'Donnell was gay, right? That would be like Janet Napolitano coming out of the.
I remember one time on the Daily Show back before Jon Stewart was the host, when it was Craig Kilborn. They had Ellen DeGeneres' brother Lance, who's straight. He played a reporter on the show, and they did like an True Hollywood story on Elton John. He says, imagine the shock when his fans found out that Elton John was gay. And they were just making fun of, it's like, duh. Well, it's like Rosie O'Donnell, same thing.
Well, just on a side note here, years ago.
Oh, it was Boy George. I'm sorry. It was Boy George. It wasn't Elton John.
Well, that'd be like,
it was Boy George.
George Michael, coming out of the closet, right? Yeah, right. So, about, I don't know, 25, almost 30 years ago, I used to bartend at this exclusive club here on Camelback Mountain, which is a real hoity-toity place in the Phoenix area if you're not aware of it. And Elton John and
Alice Cooper lives there, by the way.
Yeah, Elton John and his entourage entered, and oh my, and his entourage is an entourage. We're talking 20 to 30.
He was there too?
Elton John.
Yeah, you saw him?
Oh yeah. And,
Wow.
he does have a harem of young men. It just is.
He is kind of a tennis player. He likes to play tennis.
Well,
he used to.
Well, yeah. Well, that's what he went. It was a tennis club that I bartended at, and yeah, he does. He is. It was no surprise when he came out of the closet. But it leads me to the question: why? Really, why? I think it has. A lot of people believe that gay people's struggle to be able to marry is on a par with civil rights, with black people.
And there's a lot of black people that take a lot of offense to that.
As well as they should. There is no genetic difference between black people and white people. So there was a reason why that
regardless of what they say about studies, blah blah blah. If the science was settled on it, we wouldn't be having these discussions.
So they want to couch this whole thing in civil rights language. It has nothing to do with civil rights. We have always, as human beings for thousands of years, we've always put limitations on marriage. You can't marry your sister. You can't marry your brother. Can't marry your father. Can't marry your mother. Can't marry your goat. Can't marry your cat. Can't marry your dog. There's a lot. You can't marry you have to be of a certain age. There are restrictions. And so somebody would say, well, so what are you saying, that gay people shouldn't have the right to marry? I'm saying the parts don't match up. What's the point? There is no purpose in it.
If you want, now, here, I was faced with something at work the other day, or last week. We have this one program that is the program that they use for everything. Registering patients, keeping patient records, costs, accounting, everything. I got a ticket. I work in IT, folks, in case you didn't know. I got a ticket from one of the users asking if on the registration form for the field for marital status, if we could put in a field for domestic partners, or choice for the drop-down box, domestic partner. Well, I found out that we can't. It's not something that we can change. And I'm thinking, why? We can change practically every other field on that registration form. And I got thinking about it. I was talking to the other guys about it, and they said, well, that's because some states don't recognize the concept of domestic partner. Now, consider this, though. Domestic partner is just not for gay couples. It's also for heterosexual couples. Okay? But it usually refers to gay couples. I would be fine for domestic civil unions or whatever, but just for here's the problem I've got. If they want to do it just for purposes of inheritance, if one of them dies, or to get medical insurance or whatever, to have everything that a married couple has, except for the marriage, that's fine, for purely legal reasons. Now, how come the people who are against doing that, who are in favor of gay marriage, always sell, well, it's just a legal contract anyway. It's a legal contract in that case, but a domestic partnership cannot be a legal contract. It's got to be marriage or nothing. See what I'm saying? See the weird dichotomy they've got there?
Well, I believe it's just an undermining of the whole marriage.
Well, exactly. They've got to destroy everything. They've got to. It's not enough to disagree. They got to destroy it and demonize it. I mean, you get people like Tammy Bruce. I don't know if anyone's ever heard Tammy Bruce, the talk show host. She's about our age. She's early to mid 50s.
Attractive. Yeah,
attractive. She's in L.A. She's the former president of the L.A. chapter of the National Organization of Women. She is openly gay by choice. She has said, by choice. She doesn't believe she was born that way. She's also pro-gun, pro-death penalty, anti-gun gun law, pro-gun rights, anti-death penalty, voted for Reagan and George W. Bush twice. She's also, you might know who she is from this fact also. She used to be the girlfriend of Bill Bixby's ex-wife at the time she committed suicide. Bill Bixby, Incredible Hulk, Courtship of Eddie's Father, My Favorite Martian. But anyway, she has said, and I've heard her say this in interviews, and I've read it in her books. She says, I don't know why they want to put homosexuality into the mainstream. She goes, I was happy when it was on the fringes. She says, why do they have to put it in the mainstream?
And I want to know some of these churches, reverends, pastors, and so forth. Exactly what biblical passage are they using to marry two men?
Kevin's in my church we used to go to when we lived in New Jersey. Now has an openly gay female pastor.
Why do you think
they make
the Episcopalian
it's on their
church?
website? It's on their website. It's on their website, and they talk openly with great joy about the fact that they're happy together and have 2 children they're raising.
And again, the why. What is the purpose of it all? I believe that there are forces out there that revel in destroying society, and I believe one of the places you'd start is with marriage. I think you destroy the family after that. You corrupt people's morals, sexual mores. I think when you break, that's what communists did. By the way, they destroyed the family. There is no family. What did Harris Perry?
Melissa Harris Perry?
Melissa Harris Perry basically
her.
said that your kids are everybody's. That's commie. That's communist stuff. But anyway, what the Communist Party always did, they have to destroy the family, they have to destroy institutions like marriage, and that's a way, it's a bastardization.
They have to destroy everything that's good.
Yeah. And who does
positive.
Sorry, but who does that? The dark side. It doesn't emanate from God. I'm sorry, but
and keep this in mind, folks. Satan has nothing against you. He's got everything against God.
And you are his creation.
And you're his creation.
He loves to see. Well, that's why I say ISIS is from the dark side. They're from hell because they love death. They love the misery, and those are blood sacrifices. By the way, those are they're not just regular old executions.
And there is an encouraging sign is you're getting a lot of Muslims are starting to stand up against it. They're afraid for their countries and everything. Also, but we need more. You'll always have your Waleed Farrises and your Zuhdi Jassers that are going to stand up against them because that's what their crusade is. But
no, I think what you're seeing is, I think when decent human beings, I don't care what religion, when they see evil, they know it. And the Islamic world, the quote unquote, the not so radical Islamic world is beginning to open their eyes, and they're saying, "Hey, man, this ain't right. There's something wrong here."
Think about
because
this.
Because it's evil, and they know it when they see it.
Talking about decent people. After the journalist was beheaded earlier this week,
What's his name again?
His name again. I'm not going to even go there, folks. Anyway, what is the first thing David Cameron did? After one day, he canceled his vacation and flew back to London. What did Obama do? He gave a brief address on TV, then went right back to the golf course with Alonzo Mourning, right?
Was it him? I didn't realize.
I think it was Alonzo Mourning.
Maybe he could help him with his swing. Obama has a terrible
It might not have been Alonzo Mourning because the guy didn't look that much taller than Obama. Obama's tall, but not that tall.
And there was an interesting.
Come on.
I don't have it in front of me, so
that's decency. What Cameron did. Not what Obama did. I'm sorry, folks. I'm going to say it. I respect the office. I don't respect him because you know why? He doesn't respect the office.
There you go. And there was an article, I think it was in the Washington Post, of all places, which is just a little bit less liberal than the New York Times. They actually had an article yesterday talking about how even liberals now are saying how disattached this president is.
Yep.
He's just totally. It shows no emotion. That speech that he made after the beheading was totally emotionless.
You got Chuck Todd even decrying this, and here's the thing: Chuck Todd's taking over on Meet the Press this week. I think it's this week he's taking over. Tomorrow is his first day, and it's like he's going to the mothership basically with NBC,
And
yet he's coming out against it.
So I haven't quite figured out. To this day, I thought I had Obama figured out. I'd go back and forth. Well, he's a communist. No, he's just a radical. He's part of the Muslim Brotherhood. No, he knows what he's doing. No, he's just inept. Because every time you see him, it's a negative aspect of him comes out that changes your former opinion about him. I don't know what he is. I really, really don't. But all I know is almost every chance he has to do something good and do something right, he doesn't. He blows it. He doesn't do it.
I think he's just living the dream.
Do you think he's that superficial? Do you think it's
I think so. Why not?
I don't know. Sometimes but the consequences of his actions hurts a lot.
I don't think he cares because I think he's a sociopath.
Well, many are, and yeah. Well, that's a good point. Yeah,
I really don't think he cares.
They say there's a higher incidence of sociopathy in politicians and business people. By the way,
and those of you who are black, don't think he cares about you because he doesn't.
The Obama phone lady.
Oh God!
I wonder how
I want Obama phone.
I wonder how her life has improved since she got her Obama phone.
What about those two women that when they're giving out the free money in
Obama
Chicago?
stash?
Obama stash. Where did Obama get the money? From a stash.
Chicago. Let's talk about Chicago for a minute. That's Obama's. That's where Obama's from. What's going on there? That's Gangstaville, man. There's more shootings, more killings in one weekend there than most major cities experience in 6 months, and they have the toughest gun laws.
Oh, hang on.
Those are black. That's black on black crime. You can't blame some racist white officer down in Missouri on that one. That's black on black crime, and that has to do with exactly the policies that have been in play in Chicago for generations.
Well, hang on a minute. When Rahm Emanuel, you were calling Rahm Emanuel the Godfather. Okay, I got a question to ask. When people come to his throne to kiss his ring, does he have to have a booster seat?
No kidding. Well, you know who his brother is. He's the architect of Obamacare.
Zeke.
He's the one that's going to start the death penalty.
And that guy, you notice now that ever since Megyn Kelly had her way with him, he's not on a lot?
Oh, Megyn Kelly has her way with a lot of people. I wouldn't want to be married to her. She could smell a lie out in a minute.
She's hot and smart.
So, did you hear? The more I hear, Bernie Sanders. I don't agree with anything the man.
I know where you're going with this. Dennis Kucinich is the same way as Bernie Sanders.
However, he tells you who he is.
Yep.
And recently he had a town hall meeting, and somebody started bad-mouthing Israel and talking Hamas up, and he lit into him. So. God bless him.
I'm reading right now. I'm reading a book called One Summer. It's about the summer of 1927, and it's about all the events that took place that summer. Lindbergh crossing the Atlantic, Babe Ruth in pursuit of 60 home runs, all kinds of stuff. The groundwork for the Great Depression was laid down at a meeting in New York with the four biggest money bank people. But
those were the same ones that probably helped start the Federal Reserve. By the way, but go ahead.
No, it was after the Federal Reserve.
I get it, but they're probably some of the same people.
Probably might have been. But anyway,
what was that island that they all met at? Jekyll.
No, I don't know. It was in the Hamptons, but it wasn't an island.
No. The original Federal Reserve meeting. But anyway, I digress.
I forgot what I was going to say.
The 1927.
Yeah, no, 1927. There was a parallel I was going to draw here. And I was thinking about this earlier this week when I was reading. I can't remember now.
Folks, you got to understand this radio show is just like a normal conversation. My brother and I are having a normal conversation that we would This is no different than what we talk about when I talk to him on the phone.
And my memory is not what it used to be.
It's called old timers.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. It'll come to me, I'm sure. Keep talking.
I was going to go somewhere with this Chicago thing.
What were you talking about that before I brought that up?
I know. Eric Holder. I got to talk about Eric Holder.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Holder went down to Ferguson this week, and first thing out of his mouth was, "I come here not only as a attorney general, but I come here as a black man."
Oh, I know what I was going to say.
Okay, go ahead.
They bring up Henry Ford. You were talking about Bernie Sanders and how he's a socialist, and as soon as you badmouth Israel and bring up Hamas, he's up in arms. It was weird. Henry Ford, by the way, was not a very bright man.
He wasn't a very good man.
No, he wasn't. He was very anti-Semitic, but the point was made that he was anti-Semitic to the point of he was against what he saw as the Jewish power brokers in the world that were trying to rule the world. But on an individual basis, he was friends with many Jews, and he had great friendships with them. So it's kind of like Bernie Sanders. He's against everything that Israel would stand for until Hamas attacks him. You know what I mean? Because his actions are detrimental to
Now, some of the things he says,
Israel.
I agree with. He doesn't like the cozy relationship between government and business. Neither do I. That's called fascism.
Really? And he's a socialist?
Yes.
That's bizarre.
Well, I saw it in a quote this morning, but anyway. But getting back to Eric Holder, I love this. So he comes down. We got a lot of racial strife going down, and what does he do?
You said he went down to Ferguson?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say he went down to Georgia looking for a soul of steel.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
It's in a bind, way behind. Anyway,
God.
Anyway,
little Charlie Daniels.
He goes down to Ferguson, supposedly to mend, whatever racial strife is going on down there, and instead he goes into and speaks to the local black residents there, and he says that not only does he come down to Ferguson as the Attorney General, but as a black man as well. Well, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? And
this other thing that you keep hearing there is that the percentage of black people on the Ferguson police force is not representative of the population. I thought affirmative action was, they wanted to get rid of it, I thought.
So he goes into detail about how he was pulled over once and his car was searched and how humiliated he was. Who hasn't had their car searched? When I was a kid growing up here in Phoenix, sometimes we did things we shouldn't be doing and got pulled over. You know what the first thing the cops do? They search your car. Mm-hmm. Especially when they see a bunch of 16, 17-year-olds, maybe with a couple open beer bottles in the car. The first thing
we got to be careful what we say because our mom is listening to us right here in the same room.
Yeah, like she didn't know any of that. But he's taking a stretch. He's trying to sort of acquaint himself with this, this real civil rights in the South in the 1950s. Eric Holder's lived a charmed life, for heaven's sakes. You know what he did? He was a little brat. Didn't he storm the faculty? He
was the ROTC headquarters at
Columbia, right? Was it Columbia?
I believe that's what it was.
Yeah. He's been a spoiled little brat since day one. Mm-hmm. And the first thing he says when he takes over Attorney General is that America has been racially, what was the words he used? We're cowards. That was the word he used. Cowards. We were cowards that we didn't want to deal with race. That's all we ever talk about in this country. Sorry.
And it's only because people like him and Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and Obama keep it in the forefront.
However, they're starting to turn. They were yelling at Jesse the other day. We don't want you here.
He was passing around the offering plate at one of the rallies.
We don't want you here. And you heard a lot of people bad-mouthing Obama, too. Basically saying things like, "What you ever done for me?" Well, that's not what the president said.
You know what Al Sharpton did? He used the thing in Ferguson as a stepping stone for starting to stir things up in New York when he got back to New York. About this 43-year-old black man that was killed by the police. So
you say to yourself, why does MSNBC have a charlatan like Al Sharpton working for him? Because they can't get rid of him. Think about it. Think about trying to get one day walking up to Al and say, "Well, Al, we've decided that you no longer fit into our plans here at MSNBC, so we're letting you go." What do you think Al's going to do? Racism.
They're going to have to do something really, really, really stupid, dumb, or ridiculous before they're going to get fired.
The man botches everything he tries to say up. He doesn't belong on TV. He doesn't have a good presence.
The guy's not very smart.
He's a Dumbo.
He's not very doesn't have a lot of book learning.
He's a race pimp. He's a race peddler. He took the mantle from Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson was bad, but Al made it even gaudier. He took race pimping to a new level.
I think he should just remove all doubt and start wearing the bright colored clothes with the platform shoes with the fish in them and the feather boas, kind of like in the movie. Like in the movie, I'm going to get you, sucker.
I firmly believe that I was going to see him down in Ferguson shaking down some of the shop owners and saying, "Hey, I need some walking around money."
we should let's start calling him Huggy Bear.
Some walking around money. I'm broke.
And for those of you who don't know who Huggy Bear is, it's a reference to Starsky and Hutch, which was a detective show in the 70s.
And they had this quintessential black character, pimp. He was a pimp. Wasn't Huggy Bear? That was his front. Was a pimp, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was.
And he wore the.
It was played by a guy named Antonio Fargas, who in the movie "I'm Going to Get You, Sucker," which was done by the Wayans brothers, by the way. It wasn't a white guy who produced that movie or wrote it. It was done by a black man.
And by the way, his son played football at USC.
Exactly. But he reprised a similar role in that movie. Antonio Fargas did. He played a pimp. I mean, he had these big platform shoes that had, like, glass heels that had goldfish in them.
And by the way, anything that Al Sharpton says loses its impact unless he's got that megaphone going. It just doesn't sound right. He's got to be yelling something to that megaphone, complaining about something.
I know.
There is one thing on the Rush Limbaugh show when what's his guy that does the parodies, that writes the parodies, the songs. Doesn't matter. But
Mark Russell?
No, he has this one with Al Sharpton.
I haven't listened to Rush for
Al Sharpton screaming through a megaphone. It is just hilarious. Say what you will about Limbaugh. You don't have to agree with him. I don't care if you do or you don't. But some of his stuff is funny. It really is. So, we done?
We still got a few minutes left. I forgot what the heck I was thinking about.
We got real important stuff here. We got volcanoes getting ready to erupt in Iceland. They're underneath glaciers, and they say that if they go, there's going to be a lot of
climate changes.
Well, yeah, real climate change, not man-made.
Exactly.
They say Mount Pinatubo pumped more crap in the atmosphere in a couple days than man has done since the beginning of the industrial age. Maybe
it'll bring temperatures down in this area.
Well, Pinatubo, they lower temperatures worldwide. I don't know by how much, but for at least 5 years.
Maybe it'll bring it down here in the desert.
They said Krakatoa,
east of Java,
changed the climate. Of course, they didn't talk about it back then. That was 1883. Mm-hmm. Changed the climate for almost a decade.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's real climate change. So we got that going on. I'm not fear-mongering anything. I'm just trying to inform you all.
Yeah, and we've also had a few comet or meteorites lately that have come pretty close.
And you got to love the Icelandic people. They're the only country that actually kicked the bankers out and jailed a bunch of them.
All right, what has Iceland given us?
Vodka.
Okay, caviar and Bjork.
And that is where Reagan basically told Gorbachev to take a hike too at the summit in Reykjavik.
And they gave us Bjork, who is Iceland's answer to Yoko Ono.
Scott and I went to high school with people with the last name Bjork.
Yep, she's okay.
Dark skin though. You would think Icelandic people from Iceland would be real pale.
But
they were very swarthy.
She also looks almost Oriental. Her eyes.
Well, her brother Scott was very swarthy.
No, the Bjorks. Oh, I'm talking about Bjork, the singer.
No, I'm talking. We went to high school with some Bjorks.
Yeah. Robin Bjork and Scott.
They were very dark complected. Icelandic. Never made sense.
I'm wondering.
Oh,
I'm wondering how they're dark skinned.
Did you hear they unearthed a Viking vessel ship right by the Mississippi River?
Really?
They say it could be.
I've heard stuff
could
about
be 1,000 years old or more.
Well, maybe we'll take that up next week, guys. Anyway, that wraps it up for another show. be sure and tune in next week. Before too long, I'm gonna rebuild the website, the savingtherepublic.net. That's our host website. I'm trying to give it a facelift to make it look nicer, make it easier to get around. We have some errors on it right now, so you can't get the previous podcast from there, but go to YouTube and type in Neglected News Report, and you should we've got about 11 of them up there, half of which are from last year before we stopped doing the podcast back in May, and the rest are from when we just picked it up recently. This will be number 12. We rebroadcast them every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 p.m. or 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. p.m. Pacific. On Phoenix Underground Radio. That's www.phoenixundergroundradio.com. We also have lots of good music up there when we don't have the podcast, guys. Give it a listen. Before too long, we're going to have set up so people can call in via Skype, and we can put you on the air, or we're going to have guests. Hopefully by next week, we'll have a guest via Skype, and hopefully we'll be... before too long, we'll be giving you guys an email address where you can send emails to us. So you can send emails to us. But after a show like today, maybe we don't want to do that.
And I want to end by saying God bless and never quit praying for this world.
That's right. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.